Okay, you're in a big gunfight, and let's say that you have 200 rounds of loose ammunition on you. Which one of these has more firepower? Not onboard firepower, but firepower as far as if, say, that you ran out of magazines, like your double stack and your single stack, you ran out of magazines, so now you have to dig in your pocket for that loose ammo and reload your single stack or your double stack. Same thing with the revolver. You ran out of speed loaders and speed strips, so now you have to dig in your pocket and load up these rounds into the revolver. So what I did is I timed myself with the revolver open, loading up the rounds, digging in my pocket, putting them in one at a time. So this is just an extreme scenario where you've ran out of ammunition and you're in an extended gunfight and you only have one gun. So there's the revolver. And this is a point I was trying to make about single stack magazines, why they're so good. And the reason why they still have a benefit today, even though we have double stacks. And I'll show you why in the end of the video here. So we did a time trial. And on this time trial, what I did is I held 5 rounds for the revolver. So this wasn't being reloaded. I was just loading the shells directly into the cylinder. I was reloading 5 rounds in here and 5 rounds in here. To make the test fair, because there's 5 loose rounds, you have to grab in your pocket and get a hold of it and then organize them so you can load them into the revolver, for instance, or load them into the magazines. So here's what I discovered. The revolver, the lowest time I had for 5 shots was 12 seconds. If you take that times 10 times that you do it, you got 120 seconds, okay, for the revolver. Now here's what's interesting. The single stack magazine, we got 930 for a low. Take that times 10, that's 9930. But even if we did this 106, that still beats the revolver just a little bit. But here it does beat the revolver as far as getting ammunition back into that magazine that you had, refilling it, and just putting it back into the gun. This is a Ruger LCP magazine right here. And the double stack is a Taurus TH9. So that's originally a 17 round magazine. This is originally a 6 round magazine. So here's what's interesting. I've always believed in single stack magazines for this very reason, because a single stack magazine, let's say that you had a whole bunch of single stacks and you ran out, you could refill them faster than you could a revolver, and you can load them much faster than a double stack. And this is where the double stack, you have problems, because if you're going to reload a double stack, it's much more difficult to put that round in there. When you're loading a double stack, notice that you have to load it so that it's at a slight angle here, and you have to push down. You have to push down, but it wants to slip. It wants to slip off of that right there. And they're designed to be slick because that's how you feed the ammunition. So this slows you down quite a bit, and especially if you're in a gunfight and you're sweating and you've already been through one 17-round magazine, but you have loose ammo. You have loose ammo, and now you're trying to reload it. This is why double stacks aren't as good as single stack magazines. Single stack magazines are the best. They're the best because they're the easiest to load. If you notice the single stack right here, just like that, look at that. Just like that. Now, what I was doing is I was reaching in my pocket and shaking them up so that way it was fair. And what I had to do is I had to rearrange the rounds like this way and this way. But I noticed that the reason why the revolver failed this test as far as not being the quickest is because the shells are longer. So you got more length. If I want to turn around this this round right here. 38s are a little shorter. This is 357 Magnum, but I have to turn it around like this, see? Whereas a 380, I could just turn that thing around. Look at that. I can just do that. And 9mm, I can do the same thing, but I don't have a single stack. That's a double stack. So what point am I making here? Firepower is often overrated, because firepower is usually used to describe a handgun that has more capacity on board. But what's never talked about is the fact that if you have 3 17-round magazines and you run out of ammunition, and like I said, between the 3 of these, you got 200 rounds maximum. If you run out of ammunition after a couple magazines, you're going to have to fill that magazine back in. Same thing with this one. And this one's smaller. It's easier to get a hold of, and the rounds go in much better. Now the revolver, like I said, the problem is when you got the rounds in your hands, they're longer. So you can't do the thumb flip like you can with the 380 as well, because there's more distance from here to clear until you can get that bullet turned around and put it in the chamber. So firepower, when you think of it, if you got in an extreme situation where you had 200 rounds on you, but you only had one firearm, single stacks are a pretty good option. I mean, a revolver is a good option too, but the reason why I say that double stacks aren't really a good option is because of the fact that they're fine and they're high capacity because they're double stacks. But when you get in a really bad situation, which would probably be extremely rare, if you really got in a bad situation where you had more ammunition, but you didn't have more magazines, now you're in trouble because your hands are going to be sweaty, and it's real slick right here on the fowler. The fowler wants to keep that bullet sliding down like this so that you can't line it up properly, because already you're running into something right here. And you can't just push down straight. You have to push down forward. You have to push forward and then down at the same time. But you have to get on right on that tip there where it's real slick, and sometimes that slows you down a little bit. But I can still get it in there. But I'm watching through camera here. I can still get it in there, but there's a lot more tension there. Whereas notice the 380 out of the Ruger LCP. Look at that. I'm ready to rock and roll. Let's say that all of these, okay, the revolver, I might as well put it here so you guys know that I'm assuming that the cylinder here is the magazine, not the speed loader and speed strip, because we ran out of that. So what I want to show you guys is notice that I have 2 or 3 of these on me, okay, and I run out of ammunition. Let's say that I don't want to load up 5, but I just want to load up a couple because I found cover. Okay, I load that in. I'm behind cover. Okay, now I've got 2 rounds to shoot back right away, or I could load all 5 or 6 or whatever. But I'm just saying it's very quick. I can grab this. I can go, okay, I'm going to top this thing off really quick, couple rounds. Okay, and then somebody comes around the corner, boom, boom, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of speed with your single stacks compared to what I've shown here, compared to even a revolver. The revolver is great, the single stack is better, and the high capacity magazine double stack isn't as good because you're relying on the magazine. You're relying on that magazine type, which is much more difficult to get the rounds in there. And the other thing with double stacks is because you got a traffic jam in there. You got a traffic jam, which means more friction, more prone to break down, more prone to wear, stuff like that, double stack magazine. Because think about it, when you got traffic congestion on your highway or roads or whatever, that all these rounds have to fight to get to that number 1 position, whereas a single stack, they don't have to fight. It's just straight up, man. And that's why some of you guys that are so adamant about these Ruger LCP Maxes, you know, having 10 rounds. I mean, let me show you something here. I mean, the Ruger LCP, even though I don't have 10 rounds, let me show you what I got that I can use. So I got this here. This is a 10 round magazine, but the same thing, this is going to load up very fast. Now this is an off-brand magazine, so this needs to be proved. And I did prove it, and it's very reliable. Although sometimes these aftermarket brands, sometimes Pro Mag, that's what this is. Some Pro Mag magazines don't work in some handguns, and they're unreliable. But this one happens to work just great in my Ruger LCP. So a 10 round magazine. Here's a 7 round magazine right here. Notice how easy I can load the ammo in there. Let me take 3. Let me load 3 of these magazines up real quick so I can show you what I'm talking about. Let me do that again. This one wasn't facing the right direction. But assuming that I have the magazine facing the right direction, okay? That's the advantage of single stack magazine, folks, right there. You can get them loaded very quickly. Now, if I had this 10 round magazine, I had loose ammo in my pocket, a 10 round magazine of 380 is going to be able to be filled faster than a 17 round 9mm, because I'll have 10 rounds in here and I'll be ready to rock and roll before somebody loads like 5 rounds or 6 or whatever. So I'm just saying it's more efficient, it's quicker, and that's why the firepower of the 380 LCP, having these type of magazines, your 6 round, your 7 round, and 10 round, is very, very good for firepower, because it's lightweight, and if I have 200 rounds of ammunition, I can reload the magazines quickly without any problems. This one's going to be a problem. The revolver is a little bit slower, but the revolver isn't bad, but it's just slower than this right here. There's advantages to the revolver and disadvantages to the Ruger LCP. I understand that, but that's for another video, because there's a lot of extreme variables. But the point that I'm trying to make today is you have one pistol and all your magazines are gone, as far as being the rounds being fired. So all you're left with is a revolver. You don't have any of these loaded, okay? These are all spent, okay? Same thing with this magazine. This has all been spent, but you have loose ammunition in your pocket. Same thing with that one. You got loose ammunition in your pocket. So you ran out of ammunition in your revolver, and you don't have any more of these, but you're still in a firefight, or still in a gunfight. You load them in. This is the second best option. This is the first best option, and this is the last option. And that's why people couldn't understand me when I was talking about the fact that single stack magazines are better than double stack magazines. Just because double stack magazines gives you more ammo, it doesn't mean that they're more reliable, because they're not more reliable. It's like a traffic jam in there, and they're much harder to load if you should use all your double stack magazines. And the other rebuttal for me was the Ruger LCP Max, guys wanting 10 rounds, thinking, oh, it's the end of the world if you have a 7 round magazine for a Ruger LCP, which it isn't. Sure, you got a little less ammo, but you can fill these back up quickly. Whereas if you had a Ruger LCP Max double stack, you're going to have problems getting it in, getting that ammo in there. And the other thing is that single stack magazines through the years will outlast double stack magazines. So that's the other thing too, because as you guys are shooting your double stack magazines, you're going to need to replace them eventually. But the single stack magazines, you don't have to replace them as much.